think they were good.
Okay, so we're back in live. So what we do instead, that would otherwise be the case. So they once again the player once again triggers the freighter's probability, but rather than, you already got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're running a little bit ahead. But basically what you've seen here is the player hit the freighter's probability, held on to it. We bent the probabilities to increase the likelihood of anything else being able to be attached. In this case, that involved the freighter. It involved the pirate, rather. So why does this matter? Think about a pirate and a freighter being created separately. It's going to take a good while for the pirate to close the distance with the freighter, disable it, park next to it, and board it. This means that you'd never come upon a situation where the freighter's already been disabled and the pirates are rampaging through the ship, so you'd better hurry if you want to save the crew. That's actually a really interesting scenario, though, one that'd be a lot of fun to experience. So while we're fine with the systemic functionality, driving things by default, we want to be able to bend things towards more interesting situations without it ever feeling too random every once in a while. The problem with probability volumes then all comes down to their construction. Each one, and there are lots of them, contains a litany of curves and associated data and is set up by hand, which is time consuming and requires constant updating as other things change. One of the main reasons why they're so difficult to maintain is that many of the variables that a probability volume details should impact one another. More security in an area should of course impact the number of pirates, but because they're all handled independently, designers have to be very careful when modifying them. Mistakes are inevitably made, which results in a lot of sleuthing around to figure out what broke or is now poorly balanced and how to resolve it. The worst thing, though, is that they're static. If an area has a lot of pirates, it will always have a lot of pirates. There's nothing you or the NPC population can do to change that. Rewards won't vary based upon the level of threat in an area because the threat is always the same. A new commodity discovery won't cause miners to move in to exploit it and won't in turn attract pirates eager to prey on them. Demand for security patrols and escorts for that area won't increase in response to the pirates, and the pirate threat won't recede as a result. What we really need then is a way to dynamically derive the probability curves based upon what's happening, or rather should be happening when we manage to resolve all these problems I've been pointing out across the solar system. So I've called out a lot of very serious problems, things that require enormous amounts of bandwidth to set up and maintain and that still fail to deliver the experience we want. What we actually want is a dynamic, logical universe. We want the demand for goods and services to be the result of a legitimate economic need, and we must have sufficient runtime context so that we can customize these modular mission templates. NPCs must be able to...
Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant, and we're having a look at Star CitizenCon today. New Star Citizen content about to be announced, I think. I've been streaming the CitizenCon live stream, which is, I think it's over here in the UK today, up in Manchester. So, yeah, I'm going to chat with you guys why this is going on. I'll be present in chat. Maybe I'll talk a little bit over the top of some of it here. I don't want to be too rude and overtalk too much of it, so I'll only talk at pretty significant points. But, yeah, I thought we'd, excuse me, share the live stream here and just see what's going on. Hopefully there's going to be some interesting points. It's just basically summarised how the game's currently set up in terms of its economy and its background simulation state, which is pretty much saying it is faked. They put a lot of time and effort into jigging things around as and when it's needed, but they're about to announce something new here, I think. So we'll have a look at what that's all about. Let's have a look. Like I say, I'll be here in Twitch chat as well as YouTube chat as this goes on. Let's turn these up and hear what they're talking about.
Nothing dynamic about it, but Quantum is totally different. For starters, it has access to all of the back-end services and can pull whatever data it needs from them. Everything you see on the screen then, that's real-time data pulled from the game. So let's go ahead and take a quick tour of the system. Let's jump on over to Hurston. Actually, I'm not getting the screen over here. I'm going to go ahead and jump over with you. I can't see anything.
Just get on over.
So Hurston is the current star system inside one of the current planets inside Star Citizen as it plays right now. So there's only one star system there. I have a feeling they're going to announce more star systems.
Everyone's favorite gas giant, Crusader. And in the background there, you can see Port Olisar. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Now, I mentioned that we're connected to all the real-time data. Let's go ahead and see what the players are up to.
Yeah, that looks pretty impressive. An overview of what's going on inside the game then.
This is a real player, thousands of them across well over 100 servers. Now, to be honest, we recorded this earlier mainly because we didn't know how many people would be playing the game while we were doing this show.
'Cause y'all are right here, right?
And I figured it would be totally anticlimactic to say, here are all the players, and 3 dots showed up. So let's go ahead and continue the tour of the solar system and jump on over to Daymar. And you can see a number of people affixed to the planet. Some of those obviously are going to be at outposts. Some of them are inevitably mining. Over there on the right, you can see the current player list. Let's go ahead and see what a couple players are up to. Just go ahead and highlight them so we can see where they're at. And let's go ahead and jump to Circo Worm and see where he's at. It looks like he's in Lorville.
Here he is. Hi, buddy.
And you can actually see some deaths down on the planet there. So obviously there's been some conflict there. And you actually see, let's go ahead and back out a little bit and find there's a contract to the right. You have access to missions, so you can see that Clipsos Norwang is requesting personal transport to Lorville, and he's willing to pay $4,500.
Good on you, buddy.
Let's go ahead and jump on over to Ariel, and we can get a view of those probability volumes that I was talking about earlier. And so what you're seeing here, as I mentioned, there are a variety of different types and lots of different content and thematic tags for all these things. So you can see everything from the default tags, you can see the security reinforcement tags, the bounty hunter tags, the spoofing tags. There are a number of these. We'll be adding more. In general, what it's doing is, as I mentioned, it's basically representing things in probabilistic state because it's too expensive for us to fully simulate them. Now let's go ahead and jump over to a shop. Let's check out the Hicks Research Station that's on Cellin. Yeah, we've got to go over to Crusader. And let's go ahead and open up that shop.
Oh, look, here's...
Yep, there's Outpost Korea, and you can see that there's a lot of death around there. Let's go ahead. And over on the right at the Hicks Research Station, you can see all the things that it buys and sells and what those prices have been doing over time. Now, I suspect I know what you're thinking at this point. This is all very cool, but it doesn't really solve any of the fundamental problems that I mentioned earlier, and that's totally true. So let's clear the board and get to that. So the primary reason for quantum's existence is to enable us to have one unified world where we can, simulate millions of NPCs and feed back into that all of the player actions into one unified whole. So there's really no difference. There are some optimized areas, the probability volumes that exist in between these two realities, but really this is the full-blown simulation. It takes into account all the player actions. So let's go ahead and start by bringing 1,000 Quanta to life. You're on the wrong one?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Jake here is cranking the number of quanta up to 1,000, and they're basically going to come streaming in from another system.
Flowing into the universe there.
These are simulated entities.
So there's no word on when this will actually go into the game yet, so we'll see what he has to say about that. But at the moment, they're just talking about technology they're working on, I think.
The vast multitude of details that we really need to allow this universe to evolve and feel dynamic. We don't actually need all of the incredibly high fidelity, super computationally expensive stuff that we would get if we were actually simulating these NPCs the traditional way on the server so that they look exactly like they would when you see them. These NPCs don't need to do animations. They don't need to do physics. They don't need to do collision detection. They don't need to do a whole slew of things that we couldn't afford to do. It'd be incredibly expensive to try. And in the end, even if we did it, it wouldn't make the end results any more accurate. So
They also have personality traits too. Like each
Yep.
one has a little bit of something going on.
yeah, there are a number of different traits that we're modeling. We're still working out the exact configuration. One of them is ambition, and that specifies how far a quantum can push themselves relative to others, whether in crime or legitimate enterprise. Another one is intelligence, and that dictates what sort of things they can pursue and how well they can do something. Happiness is a measure of whether a quantum, the singular form of quanta, is miserable or content, and unhappy quanta want to change their situation, move to a new location, change occupations, and that sort of thing. Aggression controls the lengths to which a quantum will go to achieve their objective. A business-oriented quantum with a lot of aggression might push their workers harder, trading their happiness for more profit, and as a result have to deal with more turnover. And lastly, criminality, that determines the amount of criminal behavior that a quantum will consider. No criminality equates to a law-abiding quantum. Having a very little means that they might be willing to commit some minor crimes like smuggling or illegal mining. And a lot means that they're open to piracy and murder. They can have possessions, store up money, own a ship or property, have a home. Now, all of these quanta have basically come to rest within the system. And the reason for that is because there's nothing for them to do. There's no reason for them to get up off of the couch. So, let's jump to the next slide. We're going to add a little bit of interest to the system by adding an aluminum mine to Delamar. So we've now injected a mine onto Delamar, and yet you see the quanta still refuse to do anything, and that's because there's no economic reason for them to do it. There's nothing to do with the ore that they could go and extract. Let's go ahead and open up that card, though. So that card represents the mine on Delamar, and you can see a couple of stats towards the top, quantity and purity. And what these are is basically telling you how much of that material is in that mine, and purity is to some degree a measure of concentration. It effectively details how easy it is to extract it. There are a couple of parameters at the bottom that are temporary. Those will eventually be derived from those top two parameters, but for right now we can override it for some of the testing that we've been doing. So let's go ahead and jump to the next. So now we're going to go ahead and add an aluminum refinery to Crusader. And immediately you will see the quanta start springing to life. And what's happening is they've all figured out that refinery, it wants to build up a stockpile of aluminum. And in order to do that, it needs some raw aluminum ore. And thus, it's willing to pay for it. And so the quanta are seizing upon that economic opportunity, heading out to Delamar, doing the work, extracting that ore, and taking it back to the refinery. And this will continue until it's full. So let's go ahead and open that card up again, and we can watch the refined aluminum ore gradually build up. You can also see the number of workers. A few of the quanta, so you see many of them actually acting as miners. There's also a number of them that are working in that refining factory. Refineries can't process this material, without labor, and there's a formula that dictates how much labor is required in order to process this stuff. And so they have to hire a sufficient number of workers in order to actually execute this operation. And so this would continue for quite a while. Let's go ahead and speed up the simulation a bit. And go ahead and keep watching the aluminum inventory. That's finished, so they're now building up their raw ore to basically load up. And after that, the entire economy comes to a halt. The one refiner we've added has no more incentive to buy more. Its storage houses are already full, and therefore it's not willing to buy. Since it's not willing to buy, the Quanta have nothing to do. So what we're going to do now is add a factory. But before we do that, let's head on over to the power plant formula. And you can see here that building a power plant, just like refining ore, requires something. It requires 10 workers working for a duration of 60 ticks. And it also, notably, requires 2 units of refined aluminum ore in order to produce 1 power plant.
It's got to be more complicated than that, I promise. So.
Yes. Again, we're building up. So let's go ahead and add the factory to Hurston. You got to slow it down.
Oh, going too fast there. Slow on down.
And so once again, you see the economy spring to life. And so now you've actually got 2 different tiers going. The factory, let's go ahead and open up the factory. The factory, just like the refinery, needs workers in order to build these power plants. It also needs refined aluminum. So now you've got multiple things going on. The factory is willing to buy refined aluminum. Someone has to transport that aluminum from Crusader to Hurston. So some of the Quanta are basically working, they're basically working as freighters to move that product from one location to another. Some of them were working at the factory on Hurston. Some of them were working at the refinery on Crusader. Some of them are heading back to Delamar to actually do more mining. So you've got an entire little, economic cycle going here. However, it's going to wind up coming to a dead end here. Let's go ahead and accelerate it again, just like what we saw before, because eventually the factory fills up all of its warehouses. It can't take any more. It therefore has no more, it has no more need for refined aluminum. That will eventually shut down the refinery, which will in turn eventually kill off the miners. And you can see there that the inventory is still building on the aluminum, which is why there's still some activity.
There's a lot, yeah. But as soon as it's done, it starts flatlining, so you see that the inventory is capped out.
Yep, and now they're almost done. The factory is basically got, it's got all it can handle. The refinery has all it can handle. Therefore, the entire loop draws to a close again. So let's add one more node. Let's add a shop that sells power plants to ArcCorp. Slow it down again. And so now the loop is a bit more complicated. The shop is it's a retail shop. It's looking to sell power plants. In order to do that, it needs to be able to buy them for one price, sell them for another. So it adds its markup on, and it, just like the factory that requires transport of the refined aluminum from Crusader to Hurston, it needs the power plants transported from the factory to it. And so if you notice, if the individual Quanta, they'll actually have a little translucent circle around them if they're carrying goods. And so you can easily differentiate whether or not the ones that are moving, for example, from Hurston back to the mine are empty. They're going to load up on ore. And then when they're heading back to Delamar, and then from Delamar back to Crusader, they've actually all got ore. And so this loop will actually continue indefinitely. And the reason is because we've cheated something for tonight, and it sounds very similar to what I was basically saying was a bad idea earlier, which is the shop right now is a simple consumer. It's burning off that inventory. The difference here is that the solution to that is very simple in the context of quantum. And the reason is these Quanta the next step of what we'll be working on is they'll actually require ships. Ships require engines, and so all of a sudden there's a real demand for how many power plants do you need, how many ships do you need. It all follows those same logical equations. So let's go ahead and add a bit more economic complexity.
Actually, a slide.
So thus far we've shown a very basic economic loop. One commodity, one refinery, one factory, and one retail shop. The real world, of course, is far more complicated. You'll have lots of different commodities, refining and production nodes, retail shops, and of course players in Quanta competing against one another for a limited supply of goods and services. It's this competition, this economic natural selection that ensures that things remain in balance, that a logical equilibrium is reached. Should have already gone to it. So, next. So, our current architecture basically has players connecting to a game server. And then we've got services behind the scenes that can feed information to these servers and receive information back in return. And so you can see here, we've got shop services and probability volume services and all of this sort of thing. The basic problem with this arrangement is that services don't have any knowledge of what NPCs are doing, or rather what they should be doing. So that shop service that controls the prices, it's got algorithms, but it has no real understanding. It doesn't understand that there are 10,000 NPCs that do or don't need this, or what pirates are doing, or any of that. We don't simulate at that high level anywhere within the game right now. You have servers that basically instantiate the stuff near you, and you have the services that can run these formula, and that's basically it. Now, they can implement these services, these algorithmic price calculations, but supply and demand only comes from players and hard-coded formulae. And it's the same for missions and PVs. The data is completely static and can't evolve. The number of servers, of course, as we've seen here, it varies depending upon how many players are in the game. So let's go ahead and add Quantum. Quantum changes this in dramatic fashion. It gives us a place where we can efficiently simulate NPC behavior and then feeds that behavior to the game server so that players can experience it. Further, it allows player actions to be fed back into the simulation so that there's no meaningful difference between the real and simulated worlds. Quantum creates a complete loop. NPCs can be simulated in efficient fashion. And I actually meant to say that Quantum feeds the services, which in turn feed the game servers. So let's go ahead and get back to the simulation. And what we're going to do now is alter the power plant formula. So let's add a bit of complexity by changing the production formula for power plants to require laranite.
We're gonna add some.
We need to change. No, we need to change the production formula.
No, we gotta change the. We're gonna add laranite first.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do want to add the new mine first. So we're going to add a laranite mine to Walla. And then we want to go ahead and add a refinery for this laranite. We'll add that to the Hurston L3. And now let's go ahead and adjust that power plant formula. And we're going to change the power plant formula. Right now it requires 0 laranite. We're going to change that to 2. And what we're going to very quickly see here is that we're going to start getting some laranite flowing to the Hurston factory so that the power plants can continue to be created. Yep, and that's that loop of guys right there. That's what they're taking. Now, one of the important things here is that let's go ahead and look at the Hurston aluminum. Bring Hurston factory aluminum. Now, what wound up happening there is it was very low for a period of time, and that's because they were actually burning off that aluminum inventory as fast as they could get it. And the reason why you see that spike there in the aluminum inventory is because as soon as we altered the formula so that power plants now require laranite, they were still receiving from all these freighter transports. They still had aluminum coming in, but they could no longer produce power plants. So it stalled, and then all of a sudden they started stockpiling. And then when you see that the aluminum started falling, that's because finally they started receiving supplies of laranite, and they were able to resume the production process. And so all of a sudden, their aluminum started getting burned off at a natural rate. Yeah. So now we're going to add a bit more laranite out in the asteroid fields, and Jake's going to handle that via macro. And now let's go ahead and increase the supply of aluminum and see what happens. So we're going to add a few new mines. So let's add an aluminum mine to Stanton first. And let's add one to Aberdeen as well. And lastly, we're going to do Lyria. And if you remember, we already have an aluminum mine on Delamar. They're telling us we need to hurry up.
You jump ahead, I guess.
You guys want us to hurry up or keep going? All right, so it's like 400 to 1. Let's add a couple more aluminum refineries as well to the Crusader L4 and ArcCorp L1.
Crusader L4.
Yep, and ArcCorp L1.
Yep.
So now let's go ahead. We just added all of this new aluminum. So let's head back to that Hurston factory and see what aluminum prices are doing there. What's that factory having to pay for aluminum with all this new supply, these new mines, these new refineries? And there you see that the price is starting to fall off. Can you speed it up a little bit? Let's just see what it does. And if you see, it continues to plummet. So those prices are pretty much falling off a cliff now. Yeah. From all that extra supply that's been brought on without us having to go back and rebalance anything. So let's go ahead and head on over to Stanton. And you can see that Stanton is in very close proximity to Crusader. So you've got an aluminum refinery and aluminum mining, yet there's very little activity. And the reason is because the aluminum at that mine is very difficult to extract. So let's go ahead and adjust the mining time on Stanton from 180 to 120.
There it is.
And what this, again, reflects is how difficult it is to extract from that particular location. And so you see there now, you see a few guys are actually willing to put in the amount of work necessary to extract it. Not all of them, it's still a lot of effort. And this comes back to every one of these guys having their own individual set of traits. So some of them were willing to endure, more risk, more, more effort, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead now and increase the laranite consumption.
We can hurry up a little bit. We can jump ahead to the.
Let's just go with normal pace.
All right. There you go.
So let's make the laranite more difficult to work with and more rare and see what happens there. So we're going to adjust the global laranite refining time from 60 to 120.
We're adjusting the time on Walla to be.
We're going to do both. The global refining time, we want to take it to 60 to 120. And Walla's extraction time goes from 60 to 180.
That's right. Who's on fine?
60 to 120.
No.
Laranite. So what we've just done is basically make it more time-consuming, more difficult to refine it, and we've basically made it more difficult to pull it out of the ground. So let's go ahead and apply a macro also to reduce the default purity of laranite from 50 to 16%, which means that refineries are going to need more ore to produce the same amount of refined product. Reactive? And now let's go ahead and take a look at the laranite prices on the Hurston factory. So we just did 3 different things to make it considerably, more expensive for laranite to be utilized.
Speed up that time.
And you speed it up, and you can see that laranite prices are going up. It looks like they're starting to skyrocket. This could be a complete economic disaster. If you notice, they're just going up. So what we're going to do now to bring that back into control is let's go adjust the power plant formula to compensate a bit. So let's adjust it from, instead of 2 laranite, let's change it to 0.1. So we just reduced the amount of laranite needed in the economy by 95%. And let's head back and check out the prices again. And what we should see here in a minute is laranite should start to drop off pretty significantly. And there you go.
Crisis averted.
And this will continue to drop if we watch it. You always get a little bit of turbulence because you've already got contracts set up and stuff.
Right.
Go ahead and leave it in. I want to see it drop a little bit more.
We all want to see it, Tony.
So it's already down 40, 50%, and it'll keep falling. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add some additional factories. Delamar looks pretty dead. There isn't a lot of economic activity happening over there. So let's add a bit of life by adding a new power plant factory.
Yeah, one over here too.
And yeah, let's add a Hurston L4 factory for power plants as well to create a little bit of competition for aluminum. And then let's head on over to Hurston factory, and let's check out their workers. You notice that their workers are falling off a cliff. What is happening? Well, we just opened up a new power plant factory, and they're getting offered better wages from another place. And so, and what are the wages on Hurston?
I'm gonna grab this guy.
Let's see what the wages that they were offering. I can't see it. So they were up at, is that 0.25?
Yeah, Delamar's offering like almost 3 times the wages of.
Yep, so there you see the differential, which is that factory is more desperate for workers, and so you see, let's look at basically the workers skyrocketed on Delamar and plummeted on Hurston. And eventually those wages, of course, stabilize. They find a point of equilibrium, which is a big point of all of this. So let's go ahead now and make some major changes. We're going to do this with a macro, and you can see where we currently stand on the slide.
There's like a bunch of stuff that we were supposed to be showing here. Absorb it quickly, everyone.
There we go. So we've added lots of aluminum, titanium, and degreasium. In the entries that you see on the screen marked system, all of the moons now have deposits. We've added a bit more laranite, but it's still pretty rare. We've also added a lot of new refineries. We've added cooler and quantum drive recipes to most factories, and they require aluminum, laranite, titanium, and degreasium. The demand for coolers and quantum drives has been introduced, and we've also increased the demand for power plants. And lastly, we've increased, you can see there at the bottom of the screen, the number of quanta from 1,000 to 2,000 so that we've got enough workers to keep the economy humming. Now, previously, we've seen pretty obvious cause and effect. At this point, though, the economy is starting to get pretty complicated. And we can look at a few graphs to just see what's going on with some of the prices to see this. And this is one of the most interesting things about a really complicated economy, which is these changes in quantities and prices, the purposeful movement of quanta, this dynamism. These are all opportunities that you're going to be able to exploit within the game, and they're in constant logical motion. So, let's hit the next one.
Be a shame if somebody came to steal from these people, huh?
Yep, we'll bring up the slide.
Oh, okay.
You gotta bring the slide. All right, so now we've introduced some pirates. Let's go ahead, and so you can see that there are 4 pirate kraken. There's the Nova Riders, Low Riders, Nine Tails, and Dusters. Pirates have to return to one of their bases in order to refuel, rearm. Let's go ahead. If you notice, they head to the areas of highest value. Let's go ahead and zoom in there. And you can see that those are missions being created by the NPCs, no different than players would. In other words, you see a lot of deaths on a route that's got a lot of value. And go ahead and hover over some of those contracts. These are contracts that are being thrown out by the NPCs on that route. What's happening is the NPCs are basically being, some of the freighters are being picked on by the pirates, the ship is being destroyed, and now that NPC has ejected and needs transport back to civilization. And so they're requesting that. And these are missions that would be fed back into the game that you'd see, and you could wind up accepting these. Let's go ahead and take a look at Hurston, the coolers and quantum drives.
Check this out. This is where they're operating out of, you guys. Right. What do you want to go check out?
The Hurston. Let's look at what happened to the cooler and quantum drives.
Oh, yeah.
So since we've now got a lot of pirate activity on that route, we want to see what's happening to the cost of some of those goods.
For a cool 500,000 UEC, you can get yourself your own power plant.
Yeah, I can barely see that.
It's actually normal. Piracy is really terrible for economics, you guys. So,
yeah. So let's go ahead now.
You can really see it over at the coolers where it started at like a really reasonable thing. Like
yeah, that's pegged. It's the scale. So basically they were down around 1,000, 2,000, and now they just absolutely skyrocketed in price because so many of the freighters moving, whether it's supplies or moving the finished product from one location to another, are now being intercepted. And these quanta, as I mentioned earlier, it's like they have various traits, and some of them are very risk averse, and they won't go down routes where there's a significant chance of death. And so to counteract some of this danger, let's go ahead and bring in someone to fight the pirates. So here comes some security. And what you'll notice is that security is drawn to areas of conflict where there's a lot of deaths and such. So they're going to wind up gravitating towards those areas where there's a lot of piracy. And there you can see them. Go ahead and go speed it up a little bit, not 200. It's 200 too fast. It's difficult to tell what's going on. And if you notice, by the way, the police will wind up patrolling an area, so they're in constant motion, whereas the pirates basically are enabling quantum interdiction fields. That's why they're basically picking a route on, they're picking a particular location on the route between, between two locations, and they're basically, lying in wait. And the security, which doesn't know exactly where they are, is scanning the area looking for them. And so what you notice here is that the pirate situation is starting to look a lot better now that security's shown up. And you would see this reflected over in the prices. And so what you have here is a perpetual game of cat and mouse, to where the pirates look for the areas where they can reap the largest rewards with the least amount of risk, and security is then drawn to them. And as soon as you get enough pushback from the system in terms of security, then the pirates look for more opportunistic pastures. And again, this is very much like what you would expect to see in any logical functioning system. So let's go ahead and turn on the grid. And what you're looking at here is one of the big problems I referred to earlier is how we wind up getting samplings of this, of how we generate probability volumes. And so what this is showing you is we can look at one of these high conflict areas, and it's basically tabulating exactly what's in that area. So you can see that there are 10 total quanta, 1 freighter, 11 pirates, 5 security. It also shows you the total value being transported. You know exactly what's going down that route. Let's take a look at a few other locations. Here you see the security and pirates are fairly even. 6 pirates, 7 security. A decent amount of value. 6 freighters. So there's actually an almost equivalent number of freighters, pirates, and security. This is the information that Quantum, and it's a small piece of the whole, this is what it would wind up feeding periodically to the probability volume services, so that designers no longer need to go in and say, oh, well, we're going to hard code a certain amount of security, a certain amount of freighters, and it can never change. We ship it, that's all it's ever going to be. In this case, the simulation is running, it's constantly ebbing and flowing. And your actions over on the game side get factored into this result, just like any of the quanta in this simulation. So for years, we've had just the back-end services and the game servers, and the fundamental problem was that we didn't have a single area where the entire game could be simulated, where NPCs could request goods and services because they have a legitimate economic need and could vie with players to provide those things. We didn't have a way for this activity to determine what you see as you wander around the universe, thus eliminating the need to spend enormous sums of effort configuring vast quantities of static data that could never deliver the dynamic experience we really wanted. Quantum solves all of these issues. It also provides us with a lot more context, which means that concepts not previously understood, like how much risk there is in taking an item from point A to point B, can now be easily calculated. Information like this is vitally important to the price discovery machinery, and as I spoke about earlier, in a properly functioning economy, such things can and will generate a lot of ripples. We also get the information necessary to properly customize mission content, meaning we can deliver a lot more environmental and mission diversity without having to do any more work. I've covered a few of the large areas that quantum will impact, but the effects will be felt far wider. How many NPCs you see at a landing zone, for example, and what they're doing can now change over time. Manufacturing towns might boom and bust depending upon how much commerce is passing through them at any given moment. NPCs can grow and evolve separately from their interactions with players into powerful bosses, potentially, and you'll be able to witness their growth in lots of different ways. Criminal NPCs with a price on their head can move around the universe just like a player, making trying to catch them that much more fun. We've got a lot more work to do before Quantum is ready for integration with the rest of the game, but it's one of the last big steps in setting us up for a completely dynamic and systemic universe. Thanks for listening.
Hi everyone, we're back in the annual launch and I'm here with Molly.
Hi.
And Chris.
Hi.
Molly, you came from Austin all the way to Manchester for CitizenCon.
Yes, I did. It was great.
So there's that. The next presentation should be the main keynote. It's running a bit late. It was meant to start about 20 minutes ago, so we should be seeing that then. Let's mute these guys. So you have been on in the background there. But yeah, Aloha. The next presentation is going to be about an hour and a half, I think. It should have some more visual stuff to show this time, I think, rather than won't be quite such a long discussion. Normally, the keynote shows new gameplay and new content and things like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Neon Spark Planetary Tech version 4 looks amazing. So I haven't seen the MicroTech Planet stuff yet. I missed that early on. Has had a few problems around here, and I wasn't around to see it, unfortunately. When is the update coming out? So I don't know when the stuff they just showed is coming out, Michael. It didn't actually mention when that's going into the game or anything along those sort of lines, unfortunately. Jerry, if the planet stuff was really pretty, yeah, definitely want to see that, and I'll backtrack on that and have a look later on. I'd actually go through the stream and have a look now, so we could all have a look at it all together, but I don't want to miss the Keynote, which should be starting in just a bit. So I think Chris Roberts is going to be on there. Again, I'll do the same. I'll be here, but I'll just chat with you all in the chat windows rather than over talking the presentation. I don't really want to be just too disruptive to what's going on there. But, you know, if there's some downtime, if it goes a little bit quiet, I will, of course, join in and just talk over what's going on there, as I'm doing right now. So with MicroTech, did they actually mention when that's going in? Did they? Again, I'm a little bit late with catching up on this. I wanted to stream most of this content today, but had a bit of an emergency early on with family, unfortunately. Everything's all right. There's nothing too serious, but it did involve trips to the hospital for the mother-in-law. But it's okay. Yeah, but it took up a bit of more time. You know how hospitals can be. Do we remember the Kickstarter-funded space sim being done by one young man who, this is Tylo, tried to similar things with our NPC simulated? Forget his name. Oh, yeah, I remember the game. Unfortunately, the guy stopped making it. He spent a lot of years trying to get it out there. What was it called now? I know he got quite a few 100,000 off a Kickstarter, though, didn't it? Very, very impressive stuff he'd put together. Unfortunately, it never finalised. He couldn't complete his aims. He had high ambitions. Oh, look, we got Board Gamer on there. Nice to see him getting in here. Ever listen to him or see what he's saying for a minute?
Enthusiastic people that are all talking about all their dreams or different aspects of the game. Loads of organisations coming together. It's genuinely amazing. I've been to some of the e-fan fests and stuff like that as well, but Star Citizen for me, I'm in love with the community, and that's why I play the game, that's why I cover the game. It's been fantastic, and this is my favourite CitizenCon ever, although admittedly only my second. So.
And panel-wise, what's your favorite panel?
So I haven't watched the Tony Zerovic one yet because I'm not competent enough to watch it while I'm this tired. I need to watch it like 3 times. I did watch the ship panel, that was great, but I think it's going to be the keynote that's going to be on in a minute. I mean, I'm ready for it.
Awesome. Let's bring in more people, actually.
Okay.
Just stay.
What about our cosplayers? Maybe.
Yeah, get in
guys,
here. Get in.
You want to get in here?
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
There's enough space for all of us. All right, guys. Did you enjoy CitizenCon?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, it's been amazing. Amazing fun.
So they're kind of talking there like they're wrapping things up, but they shouldn't be. The main keynote should be on in a little while, so I do hang around a bit longer. Hopefully they'll be showing some more interesting stuff. So what was this? A sort of Neon Spark MicroTech will be in Q4 2019. So well, they got another month to get MicroTech in. That's good. Hopefully they make that. I look forward to seeing that. You can't go in the city, unfortunately, until Q1 2020. Also, no moons until Q4 2020. So that's quite a bit of a wait for the additional moons there. And yeah, Near Wave. Good to see Board Gamer there for sure. Do I like Mandalorian? Mandalorian, well, what do I say? It's not available here in the UK, lower. We really don't get Disney Plus here in the UK until March 2020. But yeah, it's good. It's definitely good. I think the sort of Star Wars content I've been wanting to see for a very, very long time. I'm not a big fan of the new movies, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, Mandalorian going in the right direction. Right, so But the weird thing is, the previous presentation, the one just now, was running late. So I would have thought they would have gone straight from that to the current one. Then again, perhaps they've got to set up the stage, the new one. It would be from the same stage, so they probably have to dismantle the one that the other guys were on and get a new setup on there. At least I'd imagine so. Nikolai, maybe the game will be done when you're 70. Well, I guess that depends on how old you are at the moment. I mean, if you're 69, then probably not. I don't know what sort of number of ships Board Gamer's got. I don't know a lot about what he gets up to in the game. I just know he's got a very active YouTube channel and he puts together a heck of a lot of highly appreciated content. Is there any big event like this in Elite Dangerous? So, Gubrick, unfortunately not. Now, Frontier did an expo in 2017 where they did similar sort of stuff like this for Elite Dangerous. And also there are other games for Jurassic World and Planet Coaster. But no, that was, what, 2 years ago now? Nearly 3 years ago now? 2 years ago. 2017? September 2017. Yeah, 2 years ago. They haven't done another expo since. So, fortunately, yeah, it was pretty good. I'd like to see another one. But yeah, as Commander Mike TV points out there, they do have LaveCon. LaveCon is a fan-run convention, and Frontier do get involved with that. That's a pretty big deal. So that's yearly, but not quite on this sort of scale. Anyway, it looks like the next keynote is going to start, so I'm going to go quiet. We're going to listen in to what these guys have to say. I will talk over the top when it goes quiet and it's suitable to do so, but I will be present in both chat here on Twitch and as well as on YouTube. So let's have a listen. And wow, thank you very, very much for that, Mr. Slosh. Very, very kind of you. Appreciated. Thank you. And thank you for the comment there, Tycho. Let's have a listen to these guys then. We're going to turn them up. Oh, that's if this is indeed the main keynote. Doesn't look like it is, does it? Let's see what they got to say. I thought Chris Roberts was going to be on.
We are still setting up for that, so we are in filler mode. How you guys doing?
Filler mode. Filler mode. Well, we can wait a bit longer. They're setting up for the other thing. Tylo, Limit Theory. That was the one. Yes, and the guy behind it was Josh. I remember his name. No, you said that. I remember the guy's name. That was seriously impressive stuff, wasn't it? Limit Theory. I was really looking forward to that game. I feel pretty bad for the old Josh that he wasn't able to complete it. Getting a bit of a cutout here. Hopefully the stream is still going through and I'm not being cut off from YouTube here. I assume we're still going through YouTube. Let's see if I'm still live. I've got no messages here saying I'm not live, so the chat's gone remarkably quiet. Oh, we're still live? It was a little bit odd, wasn't it? It looks like our Citizen gone offline, has it? Yep, you guys are still here, still very much like that. Was a bit worrying here. We got a black screen and an advert. Oh, we're not going to show any adverts from there because no. This is a restream of Star Citizen's broadcast. It looks like they might have gone offline there. Angry Mosquito. Let's wait for them to come back on. Oh, they're back. Bit of a glitch, wasn't it? You like Tesla's glass? You know, he actually tested that glass on stage. We saw it where they were dropping the ball onto it rather than throwing the ball at the glass. And they dropped the ball at it 3 times, didn't they? From 3 different heights. So to me, that was proof enough that the glass is perfectly fine. And it was just one of those things. Obviously got kinks in it, but I think old Elon Musk gets more flack than he deserves, to be perfectly honest. Halo Rides, they tested the Windows before the Keynote and had probably developed micro cracks, quite possibly. They also showed another pane of that glass on the Keynote. It was laying flat. Worked quite fine. Elongated Musk. Talking of Elon Musk. Great name. You're a backer of Elite and have played for 3,000 hours. You've lost all hope for the game. So, I can totally relate to what you're saying now. I think I'm also a little bit worried about the short to medium term future for Elite. It doesn't seem like a lot's going on with it right now. Well, obviously nothing really going on with it aside from fixes and interstellar initiatives, and not everyone is that interested in that sort of content. Yeah, I think later though, long term, there is a future for the game, assuming that. Well, look, Frontier say they're putting a lot of investment into the game in terms of money and in terms of development and staff and all their financial reports, which they're legally obligated to put out. They can't really lie in those without getting themselves in some serious trouble here in the UK. They'll say they're working on big stuff for 2020. So, yeah, long term, I'm not at all worried about the future of Elite. I think it's going to go in some very nice directions, but it's getting there, isn't it? It's another year's wait. That's the problem. Would be nice with at least a teaser. I think if you're talking about Elite there, yeah, I'd like to see at least a teaser of what's going on there. Signeth. Right. The other guys have come back on there. We've still got the banner on there. Sorry about that. I should have brought that back down a minute ago. Right, give me 2 seconds. I've just got to take a bathroom break. Be right back and listen to these guys talk. I won't be too long.
The Kasaba outlet. I have no idea if any are left over, but
Again,
it's really nice.
Just briefly there, the other keynote is about to start in a few minutes with Chris Roberts. They've said they're just setting up for that. So do stick around because hopefully there'll be something that's worth seeing.
One of the things that's recently been revealed is that there are actually 2 variants of the Pisces.
Yeah, so there's the C8, which is what everyone that owns a Carrack gets with it. It's the original. So the Carracks are ex-military, sold to civilian ships. So the C8 Pisces is the sort of military version sold to civilians. So it's slightly stripped down. And the C8 Expedition is the original version of it. Fundamentally, it just has 2 more guns and a white paint job. That's about the difference between the two.
Yeah, but 2 more guns.
2 more guns. Neither of them are snub ships. They are fully fledged ships. They have quantum drives. They have space for a jump module. So you can use.
Let's hear it.
You can use it for proper exploration.
You forgive me. I've been broadcasting all day with bronchitis. I have to do this.
That bottle was full at the start.
Yeah. Well, this is my 3rd bottle. So the Carrack wasn't OP enough. You had to take the Snubcraft and make it a fully fledged ship as well?
Why not?
What are you doing?
Well, they wouldn't let me make it bigger again, so I had to do something else.
I want to talk a little bit about the push to February.
Yeah.
Now, we've been very candid in the past. We've been very candid about a lot of things. Some of the ships that have released in the past, maybe were pushed out a little before their time.
Yeah.
Cutlass! Oh, I got to do that again. What ship came out before their time? Cutlass! So which necessitated a rework.
Yeah.
Part of our new initiative, part of the continuing refinement of the vehicle pipeline is to try to avoid situations like that in the past. And that means that while, yes, we certainly want ships like the Cutlass, like the Carrack rather, to come out right when 3.8 is, rather than push it, rather than rush it, rather than cut corners, rather than have to go back and redo it later on. It's more important to us that we take the time to do these things right, especially with a ship that has as much weight with the community as the Carrack. I'm going to ask all 3 of you this. I know you guys aren't ship people, but I'm curious what your opinions are. And Mike, you got to do something. Why do you think the Carrack resonates so much with the community?
I think it's because it's that ship that does a bit of everything. It's got everything in the kitchen sink in it, so it allows you to do a bit of cargo trading. You've got a medical facility on board, so you can do a bit of healing. You've got a repair facility on board, so you can do a bit of repairing. Scanners. It's got everything for you and your friends to do.
Shields in the cockpit.
Shields in the cockpit.
The antenna things that go.
Yep.
Will they go?
They will. They'll make that noise. Get the audio to pump.
Will they?
Yeah. If you go back there and Phil will record you.
Sean Tracy absolutely recorded the voiceover for Theaters of War, didn't he?
He didn't.
Did?
Yeah.
He didn't. It sounded just like him.
It's definitely him.
He had
Uncanny.
a Doppler. Doppler.
If he can do that, I can do the for the Carrick. Please. That would be my sweet revenge for all these. Yes. Oh, wait. Phil Smallwood, audio director, you're in here somewhere. Let me do the for the Carrick. Be my revenge for that beard. All right. Richard, when we were talking about Theaters of War, a lot of the comments in the Twitch chat were, and we touched a little bit about this, but I want to hit it again, especially since we got time. Hey, we got time. Why is it important that we do things like Theaters of War? It can easily be argued that we should just keep pushing forward on the present years, and we certainly are. But why is it important that we also develop something like Theaters of War alongside it?
Well, to be honest, if you look at, say, Star Marine and Arena Commander, why they were actually created in the first place was to give us kind of that petri dish, that focused experience, so that we could actually look at it as developers, give that to the community and say, you know, how do you like it? Do you want to go this way? How, you know, get that feedback. And Theatre of War is kind of the extended journey of that. You know, it started off, we got Arena Command and Star Marine, and you know, what's the natural progression of those is you put them together. And when you put them together, that's what the experience that we're trying to deliver on the PU. So Theatre of War allows us to get it out there as soon as possible. I know Sean wants to get it out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I know. He removed the win on his card and he went rogue.
Yeah.
Sean, are you in here?
He is.
Yeah, you are.
But, you know, it's an incredible, basically it allows us as the devs to actually get in there and, you know, not have to load up the PU and go through all the steps to coordinate everybody to into the same space and go through that process. So from our perspective, it allows us to be really efficient and get absolute feedback on the combat, the balancing, you know, between the players on foot to ground vehicles to ships and how that all coordinates together. Because, you know, the beauty of Star Citizen is that we're not just making a space game, we're not just making an FPS, you know, or you know, Tony's Economy, and it's all of those things that come together, all the different ingredients. That's why it makes Star Citizen so unique. You know, in terms of the scale, you know, the tech, Ian's pine trees, he loves those.
He loves those
you
pine
know,
trees.
all of that stuff.
Shut up about the pine trees.
But you look at all of that.
Writing them down for a minute. Hopefully you weren't listening too much to what they had to say. I'm going to keep talking until the main keynote comes on. A little bit longer there because I nipped away to get something to eat as well. I brought a few little bits of goodies to the desk with me and a couple of drinks. Are they going? Are they applauding or no? Right. They're saying literally nothing. That's the impression I got, Mike. I think as I just said here, they're just filling time. So does anyone know what we expected to see today? I've heard rumours that they may be showing another star system, a new star system. I'm not personally expecting that, but it'd be pretty neat if they did show something like that. The scale of this villa is way too big. So, rides, the problem is that they've got an entire stage to set up. The other previous keynote overrun, and they're going to have to set up an entirely new stage. So, they've got new computers on, and the whole layout of the stage, pretty much everything. They've got to get that all set up. So, it takes time, is what they're doing at the moment. Part of the demo showed just the Carrick and MicroTech. So that was the one early on at Neon Spark. Yeah, I saw the trailer for the Carrick. I haven't seen anything for MicroTech yet. I'd like to look through that now, but I don't want to end up missing the start of the keynotes. you think they'll destroy Port Olisar at live? I've heard rumours that might be happening, Mike. Whether that'll happen live or whether they'll wait for the that to happen in one of the updates, if it is something that's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, Port Olisar has been there pretty much since day one, hasn't it? From when the servers opened up. So, pretty significant if it does go down. Anyone know if the 890 is going to be reflyable? Not heard anything on that. Marshall says Squadron 42 in 2 weeks. What do you mean by that? Release in 2 weeks? I think you'll find Squadron 42 is probably going to be 2021 at this point. Not most of the, but a heck of a lot of the content for Squadron 42 has been delayed right towards the back end of 2020. So I doubt whether we'll be getting a full release of Squadron 42 next year. I'd imagine that's going to be 2021. But excuse me, I might be wrong on that. We'll have to wait and see, but I think not many people would be surprised if it is delayed into 2021. No worries, Venter. Totally welcome. It's a pleasure to be able to sit and talk over a live stream like this and join in with you guys anyway. It's nice to just interact. I think they're just filling things in, Matthew. They're just talking a load of random stuff, which is why I'm talking instead. I'd rather talk with you guys rather than listen to them at the moment. They're just filling space. We're waiting for Chris Roberts to come on. Let's have a quick listen, though, just to get a bit of an idea of what they're saying.
Sorry?
How's your day been?
It's been fantastic, actually. It's been great. I've, loved seeing the demo one at the start. I've seen a few of the presentations. Yeah, just kind of soak up the atmosphere.
Did you check out the marketplace?
Yes, I did. It was
Did you
amazing.
see your Fizz hologram?
I tried to take a video of it, but obviously it's a hologram, so...
Yeah, you got the refresh rate on your video now.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. It was amazing, yeah.
All right, now, John, you talked to Carrick in your presentation. I'm not going to make you go through the whole...
So yeah, just filler, just random talk, Matthew. Had a coffee today, brilliant coffee. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Right. Vanguard, hello there. I'm doing good, thanks. How are you doing? You all right? Uptown, you'd be pleasantly surprised if Squadron 42 come out in 2021. Oh, it'd be a shame if it got delayed past 2021. Surprised he didn't talk about the scowl of his day. Oh. Yeah. They've been playing a lot of 3.7 recently, Pig Boy. Waiting for ED at the end of 2020. Yes, me too. I think I finally get it. SC is much more enjoyable and stable now compared to previous releases. So yeah, I've been playing some 3.7 of Star Citizen as well, and if you look back at my recent videos, you'll notice I live streamed it a few weeks back, and I found it to be very stable. I did have a couple of crashes on that stream, but generally it went very, very well. The only issues I really had were at one of the planetary ports. Is Twitch about to go down again? Nope, it's fine. Where I was lagging up, but I think that might have been my CPU. I've got a new CPU actually now, which I'm running this stream on right now. It's Ryzen 7 3700X. So it's a bit better than my previous i7 6700K. So we'll see how much difference that makes next time I do a Star Citizen live stream. Hopefully it'll improve things a little bit. Yeah, Grimless, you play for hours with no server problems. I think I hear that quite often now. That's not to say there's not bugs. I hear people often glitching through things and other weird things going on. But Marshall, can you briefly explain what happened with the Thargoids? Been away for Elite for a long time. So it depends on what the last thing you remember with the Thargoids. Last major thing that happened, that wasn't an interstellar initiative. No, well, there was the interstellar initiative with the Thargoids where they attacked Professor Palin's base out in the Maya system. They then moved to the Witchhead Nebula, where players started going out that way. There was a community goal to set up some stations there, so there's now human stations in the Witchhead Nebula. But anything major in terms of Thargoid's story, there's really been nothing for at least a year now. But the Thargoid story seems to have just gone and disappeared. I'm really hoping there's going to be more of that stuff very soon. Al Gorn, thank you very, very much. That's a wonderful comment. Thank you very much. Right, looks like they're about to start. So, then there was that Thargoid hybrid ship that hasn't reappeared since. So Matthew, yeah, the Thargoid hybrid ship I think wasn't meant to be in the game. I think they accidentally revealed that. But let's have a listen to this then. I'm going to go quiet for a while, but I will still be here in both Twitch chat and YouTube chat. So I'll still be joining in with you.
All right. Hello again. Carrot trailer. So, anyway, I was just going to say, hopefully you guys have had a good day so far. There's been a lot of really cool panels. I think Tony Z's last one was pretty cool. It's showing you how we're going to have a very dynamic universe on a high level. And obviously the stuff we had with the various things like the MicroTech V4, ships, characters, UI. So hopefully you guys got to see some of that. And the marketplace was great. You guys are always great. Well, this is the end. So hopefully we've got something special for the end for you guys. So last year, at the end of CitizenCon, I had the sort of road to release roadmap. As of last year, we said, well, we've achieved 7 of those 12 that we'd set out to do, starting with the hangar and going all the way to location persistence and MicroTech. But since then, we delivered the OCS and band culling at the end of last year, which I think made a big difference on the client performance. We got a few things that we're doing this year. So if I go. So we've showed it, but MicroTech 3.5 is what we did last year. Sorry, I'm behind on the... Can I not get this up here? Otherwise I'm going to have to look up here. Oh, forget about it. So we had ship purchases, ship rentals, which is actually quite cool because you don't have to buy with cash any of the ships. You can rent or purchase them with the money you're earning in the game. And we've also been shifting to quality of life staggered development, which is, you saw a little bit of that in Alpha 3.7. We're more serious about that. So we've moved the teams to 6-month cycles. We're still delivering patches every 3 months, but the teams themselves get 6 months to work on their features or their content that will go into whatever patch they're sort of designated for. And I think it gives them more time to do good work and iterate and give you a better experience. And we're slowly working on aspects of the gameplay, in terms of, say, the feel of flight or the feel of combat. We're doing things like, Sean was showing the sort of theaters of war where that's a good sort of contained mode that will allow us to sort of fine-tune what's really cool about Star Citizen, which is sort of the mixed arms, the ability to be on the ground or in a vehicle or up in space. And so we are increasing our focus to make sure that the game experience now is, 3.7 I think is probably our most stable release today. But the game experience now is good and then is just improving as we go on. So this is what's coming up next. So in 3.8, we are going to have the very first iteration of server-side OCS. And you guys didn't know it because we didn't want to spoil the thing, but the demo we ran this morning was running it, and this, what we're running right now, is running SOCs, and you'll understand why it's important as we get into the demo. Assuming it doesn't crash, which, you never know. To let you know, so it's the first iteration of the server-side OCS. So we have like server persistence in the session of the server. So the server, whenever it, it leaves an area, it streams stuff out. It remembers the state of all the items and all the stuff that was there at that time, but it doesn't persist beyond the server session. The bigger thing, which we've talked about in the future, is sort of the iCache, which is the full persistence. Hang on, what happened here? Weird. I don't know, it's not me. This is why I was on this main screen here. I've got a black screen here and a black screen here. Anyway, so I'll talk about persistence. So, okay, now we're back up. So platform persistence is one other thing that we're putting in the 3.8, which is is basically a halfway house to the very full persistence, but the platform persistence is going to allow us to save off the alpha UEC that you've earned, also any items or ships that you've bought or rented in the game are going to, so they're going to get saved off to the platform in the same way that we record all your shop cash purchases. And so when a new release comes, we can re-entitle it back to the account in the same way we do for everything that you do. And the plan with that is to not have to wipe between iterative releases on a major release, and potentially even from one release to the next. And we do reserve the right if there's like a major issue or a major rebalance, or we have to redo the database on a major release, then at that particular time we may have to wipe it. But in general, the goal is to let you guys make money in the game, earn things, collect things, and not have it wiped every time we do a new release. So we're aiming to ship that with, that will hopefully be, that should be with the 3.8 patch cycle. And now, MicroTech v4, which we obviously sort of unveiled at the beginning, and there was some really cool panels about it during the day, which I think is gonna, just the quality of, not just MicroTech, but going back to the old places like Daymar or Selon is whole new world. One of the focuses we got upcoming too, which we not particularly managed to show well this morning, is the social group gameplay, but that is a focus for us to make sure that the FOIP and the VoIP and the group gameplay stuff works well. It's important for us to get stuff working for, as Sean mentioned, for the Theaters of War, but just in general, grouping up with your friends in the universe, doing stuff. And so that is a focus, and you'll see us iterating on that for 3.8, 3.9, and onwards. More robust missions. So we've got some stuff coming up in 3.8 that is interesting. There's, we're starting to introduce AI into some of the missions, like say the rescue the hostage on the 890, which we had in an ATV. We were showing a very early version of it that will be in 3.8, and there'll be some other ones along that line of missions, and that's multi-part missions, which also what we're showing is sort of an early version of a multi-part mission, what we showed at the beginning and we're going to end with here, that 3.9.40 onwards. Then, sometime around about middle of this year, I think, so full universe persistence. And that is the persistence that allows us to save everything, period. So you can take your coffee mug that you've got in the Carrack and explore on a planet and drop it in a forest, get back on your Carrack, fly away, and someone else could go to that forest and see that coffee mug, or you could come back and see it if someone else hasn't stolen it. And so and that iterates to every dynamic item in the game gets saved off. So basically, we save the state, it goes back to a cloud database. It's what we're calling the iCache. Of course, there'll be some stuff like, we want to be smart where like people can't like stack 1,000 turtles in a place. So obviously, we'll have some policies on the items. So at some point, when we're saving it to the database, we'll say, well, this is a low importance item. There's too many in this area. So therefore, and this one's been around too long, so we just won't bother saving that to the database. And then you'll just sort of be like, oh, someone came along while you weren't there and took the turtle or cleaned it up. But in general, usually, so the permanent structures. So one thing that gives us is the ability for you as players to go around the universe and ultimately, you want to create your own base somewhere, create your own homestead. You should be able to settle down and put a base there, and it will be recorded back to the iCache, and you can come back to it, and it will be there, and it will persist. And so I think the opportunity for emergent gameplay that comes from that is going to be fantastic, because as you saw with what Tony was doing in his presentation before, we're going to have dynamic resources in the universe. We're also going to persist those. So they'll be finite, so there'll be only so much gold or hadonite or whatever it is on various moons or planets. And as they get mined out, then you'll have to find some other place to move to it. And there's an especially rich seam. I can see a group of players coming, setting up camp there and starting to mine the resources. And then I can see some other groups saying, oh, well, that's great. I want some of that. They show up, and you basically have two groups battling out. And then there's a whole business that's going to be involved in supplying more weapons or logistics or healing people or bringing, consumables that people need. So I think there's going to be this dynamic, evolving system that will be incredibly interesting and compelling, and I'm really looking forward to that. And that's enabled by the full universe persistence, which is, like I said, the full persistence of all items, ships, characters, and also persistent tracking of the resources. And then the last thing, which we won't, I think, get to by the end of next year, but we'll be very close to it, is server meshing. And so everything we've been doing up until then, and that's when I think everything fully comes alive, is the server meshing allows us to have a lot more players in the same area. But the work that we've done on the kind of server-side OCS, where you can change the point of view of the server arbitrarily anywhere around, and save off state is exactly what you need for server meshing, because what happens in a server, if more people arrive, say, I don't know, in New Babbage, and you suddenly go, oh, we can only run 100 people or 200 people or whatever the number we can simulate on the server, and there's now 201 people, you say, okay, I'm going to spin up a second server. Here's another view onto New Babbage, and these players are on that, and you just keep on spinning up more to take on the load in areas. And so that's why we needed the server OCS and the bank culling and the full persistence, and it enables server meshing. So that's the next thing. Once we deliver the full persistence, we're actually already starting to work on the network side of what we need for the server meshing right now. But we're really excited about that, because then that's going to allow a sort of dynamic, seamless universe that won't have the same player count restrictions. And by the way, we'll also, we don't know quite with server OCS what we'll be able to do, but we're going to start experimenting with some player counts in the future and maybe upping it, because at the end of the day, if we're not simulating the whole system and it's a smaller subset of that, we'll be able to have more players. So we'll see in the midterm if we get more players into a server right now, but longer term server meshing is what's going to allow us to really have a fully dynamic universe. And then on the smaller things that we're going to be working on is, obviously, I've talked about the quality of life. It's an ongoing effort for us. You're only starting to see the very, very beginnings of it. So we have some dedicated teams that just focus on the quality of life. We have what we call the vehicle experience team that we're working on things to improve how it feels operating and running a vehicle. I mentioned that there was a couple of things like the look ahead, some small stuff that we showed in the opening, but there's a lot more stuff to come, and also in terms of the feel of combat and all the rest of the stuff. We're going to be adding, obviously, more loops. I think next up we've got sort of fueling, refueling, fuel collection. Then it'll be salvage, more content, obviously, and then open up a bit. We'll see what happens. All right. So now we've done that, we're going to head into our demo. But at first, let's just recap and I'll get Todd Pappy up here with me, wherever he is. Hello, Pappy. Come on. There we go. All right. So, just in any good TV show, All right. So we're on the MicroTech shuttle to the lab. Need to get that.
Can we get the quadrant?
Right, and by the way, Glenn is actually on a AI flown ship here. So, and that is something longer term that we're going to be working on, which is AI doing things like taking you a shuttle from a space station down to the ground, or various locations that you could go to without having to fly to yourself. So think of it as a bigger version of the transit system. And here's one of the things that I think Ian's talked about, we've talked about, is that we want to increase our range of, we have outposts, but they're pretty small. And we want to have points of interest that you would have in various planets or moons that you can have mission content in, things to do. And this is sort of this is a sort of first prototype of that.
Yeah, so basically multiple entries, multiple exits. Obviously with outposts, you got one way in, one way out. So for us, from a design standpoint, this allows us to build these in a modular way so that we can have different entrances, different exits, different room layouts, different mission content associated with it. From there, then we start looking towards towns and villages. And then obviously we have our main cities.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, this is sort of a prototype, first version of a sort of multi-part mission that we've discussed and thinking about doing in the longer term, not 3.8 obviously, but 3.9 or on beyond that. Of course, it's cold here in MicroTech.
So you'll see, now that we've entered into the room, the temperature that the character feels changes, and he actually starts returning back to normal.
All right. Hopefully our trusty ID card still works. I'm willing to say it does. And if we take a look out the side, Glenn, out the window a bit, when you out the window out here. So one other thing, which we're going to get into a little further, but if we actually take a look outside, the other thing that we're showing here is dynamic weather.
Yes.
And so actually there is a ground snowstorm blowing in. Can you look out the window a little bit, Glenn? Or not? Glenn?
Glenn, can you look out the window?
Just take a look out the window quickly. So if you take a look, if we go take a look out here, it's where the trees, go to the left a little bit. Should be, I think. There, so you can see. So, all right, we carry on. So there's a storm blowing in right now. Come to that in a bit better. But the weather simulation takes into account the humidity, the wind, temperature.
Yes,
right?
All of that.
And it is dynamic. So it's set up. So not going to have. We've got a couple of elements still to come on the fully dynamic planetary weather, which would be volumetric planetary crowds and volumetric ground fog. We have a large amount of the pieces in place for our weather sims, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but let's carry on with our mission. So we're gonna go look for the data center to try and steal the algorithm.
So it says it in the demo, or basically in the mission briefing, that you're looking for server number 5. So we'll be looking around and getting closer and working our way over there.
And try not to be too conspicuous. And the idea with these kind of missions in the longer term is to have the ability to do like stealth gameplay instead of combat gameplay, so, solve some puzzles, yes. So it's not just going to be about shooting people all the time.
Well, and it's something that Tony and you and I have talked about a long time ago, which is basically breadcrumbs as well, so it opens up to other aspects.
So we want a sort of combination of sort of the procedural dynamic stuff that would be generated by the universe simulation that Tony was showing earlier, plus some more crafted, multi-stage, kind of more narrative missions, and they all get mixed in to give you a really sort of nice flavor and variety of things to do. So, like, we need to figure out a good way. We're going to we kind of know a good way, but as a game player, you would actually have to suss this out. So we're going to go back here in the maintenance area. Great. Very quiet, great.
Yes. In the future, obviously, the AI will have certain stims that they can react to, and audio is one of them. Having certain objects that the player places around would be another way to distract AI.
Again, there was things like we took Glenn's going to take his pour. There's like locks on the multi-tool, and we can pretend we're going to pour them off, or not. There you go. But yeah, the idea is, like the FPS, like the multi-tool has different modes. Cutting, could be mining, could be welding, repairing. In this particular case, we're just going to cut the 4 kind of hinges, locks off, so we can take the grate open and get through it. And again, this is, I think we've talked a little bit about, especially with something like whether the weather or the temperature, it's about taking like the physical inventory, taking the things you need. So do I need a tool to go and do something? Do I need to have an outfit that will keep me warm or protect me from fire?
I mean, I think even with our combat and everything like that, we want people to actually think about what they need to do first.
Are you looking for the exit?
No, he's looking how to turn that off.
No, it's on the bottom here. Go down here. There. See that square? Move your cursor down. Oh, can you tab to it? Your mouse isn't working?
Aye.
Hit aye. All right, Glenn's managed to crash. That can't be right, right? Come out, do that. That's one way.
There we go.
Okay, well done. So that's as you guys know, there's an inventory. There's a personal inner thought system, which is Richard is the personal inner thought with 3.8 or 3.9. 3.9. So the personal. So yeah, that's sort of work in progress. But a personal inner thought is in 3.9, which allows you to access a whole bunch of actions or interactions that are sort of on you or would be your thoughts. And so that's a very early version that obviously for some reason is bugged, but we weren't actually meant to end up triggering that.
So we're looking for a data card.
And we're going to steal some data. Oh, there's a guard on that side. Just make sure you stay out of that way, Glenn. There you go. Okay, come over here. There we go. Take the data card.
You can take that one, or I think he clocked one on the desk, I think.
Okay. It was risky. Okay, quick. All right, back. There we go. And then maybe under here to get to the other side. And by the way, one of the reasons why, yeah, there we go. One of the reasons, obviously, why MicroTech, they like this planet and it being cold is to essentially cool all their,
the server farms?
Server farms, yeah.
Yes.
It's like a big Microsoft. All right, let's try to get some data. And again, this is building block UI, right?
Yes.
So that's all put together by a designer fairly quickly without having to have Flash programmers or... Okay. Let's get it. Let's get out of here with our ill-gotten gains. Can't really go that way.
Yeah.
All right, let's... All right, I don't know. This looks all right. Ooh, all right, Glenn. Just pretend that you're blending in. Okay.
Do you mind telling us what the hell is going on? Hey, I'm talking to you. This is our project. You can't just freeze us out like this.
Right. Ooh, jeez. That was close. You almost put it on top of his... Okay. Oops-a-daisy. I think we better get out of here, Glenn.
Yeah. So we have non-lethal takedowns now.
Okay, let's get out. Yeah, it's part of that. So melee combat does ship with 3.8, and it's a lot more than just that, but it's non-lethal takedowns. You'll be able to fight.
To knock people out.
Knock people out, get into fisticuffs. There's a whole sort of different levels of punch, left, right, block, left, right. It's all actually physically based. So we've grabbed something kind of warm, but we're not really ready to it. We've actually stashed a getaway environment suit. And Richard Trier, I want to bring up to the stage. So Richard's the lead designer on our actor feature team, and I'd like him to talk a little about what is happening right here and the beginning of the actor status system that will ship in 3.9.
So what you're seeing here is basically an extension of the room system, and the room system contains temperature, wind speed, humidity, and it basically amalgamates all of that into what you're seeing on the HUD at the moment, which is the apparent temperature. So the apparent temperature actually comes in and is part of our player status system. And the player status system is where you start to feel these environments, and the actual environments start to play into the gameplay. So you can see here that actually the physicalized wind, he's actually leaning into the wind, he's putting his hand up to try and shield himself, but he's not wearing the correct attire. So he's not wearing the correct equipment, because he's just basically grabbed the clothes and jumped outside. And as you can see, it's really cold. So he's starting to shiver.
A bottom side here, it is.
Yeah, it's like
minus
120 degrees Celsius. So obviously, you can only survive at like at least 2-3 minutes in that temperature. So he's actually starting to undergo hypothermia, which is part of our status effects. And hypothermia actually ties into the gameplay. So his heart starts to raise, his stamina starts to decrease, he starts to actually physically start to see, you'll see a whiteout, so he starts to become more sensitive to the light, and his audio will start to come in as well, to actually really sell that your body is shutting down. And the player status system really, it just incorporates multiple different things. So hypothermia is part of the temperature gameplay, and you're seeing the cold aspect here. But eventually that will be for heat, as well as other actor statuses as well. But you can see here, starting to see the other value on here that you see is the apparent temperature, but the other value is the body temperature. Now the body temperature is tracking your internal body, so, and I think, what is it down by now? It's like down at like 33 degrees
We forgot
Celsius.
to put the drop shadow on the thing. And so we're not in the suit. We actually have a suit that we stashed in the cave, which we're looking for. The other thing that you may have noticed when Glenn was going to the third-person view, but we're working on environmental shader effects. So there was snow accumulation on the jacket that he wore. You notice, you go back and look at what it was when he got it and what it is now. And with that, accumulation is meant to be for things like snow, rain, dust, dirt, and that's something that we're looking to have in 3.9. So you really feel the environment.
The biome, that basically your environment. So
yes.
It'll build up over time.
Build up. So we better get a warm suit on, because otherwise we're going to essentially pass out and then die.
So this suit is actually cold, so hopefully when Glenn puts it on, you'll see actually that it's actually frosted, so you can see your actor's actually shivering here as he's putting it on. And this suit is the Caldera suit that we revealed in the character archetype talk, and this is an environment suit that's built for these extreme climates. He's really cold. He's really cold.
So you'll see the visor's frosted up.
You can see,
and
this is like getting into your car when it's frozen. It's frozen, and the visor's actually frosted up, your suit's frosted up, and as your suit kicks in, this suit has an operating range that can actually survive these temperatures.
So yeah, and if we go, and you'll see it now, because the same effects that we saw on the windshield, you definitely see
So think of it like your car.
So a visor, you're going to see, because it's a big winter storm, snow, slush that's warm in here as it's going out though, it's going to start to get slush, and what we're going to see is is tough. And then I think the other person that I'd like to bring up is Mike Snowden, who's the director of our visual effects, and his team is being responsible for all the environmental weather effects here. And this is what we're doing on the snow side, but it same could work in, a desert planet for dust, rain, And we've actually prototyped a lot of this stuff outside snow, but you're seeing the snow has been our first example. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so this is all, the main thing about these effects is they're completely data-driven, so I'll put a lot of time into creating these rule sets. The way that we author the effects is completely different to anything we've done before, because we know that we can make beautiful looking storm effects, but the really cool thing about this, no pun intended, is that it's literally the data that the Planet gives us, so this ties in with the PlanetTech V4, which obviously we're showing off today. It ties in with all the active status stuff, so it's like bringing everything together. So they look fantastic, but they're completely driven by what the game data is.
Yeah, the temperature, altitude, humidity, and so it's systemic and it's
I mean,
and it'll be affected by time of day and other things.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so the rule sets are things like temperature, even elevation, wind strength, wind direction, even angle. There's a lot of complexity in the rule set that makes it really easy actually for us in the long term to make the effects across all the kind of hundreds of planets that will eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously you can see the effect of the winds on the vegetation. And as you see here, we're in fog. You see the snow. Our visor is getting, it's like you would be, in a snowstorm if you were skiing or out there. So we stashed the suit. We actually had a rover that we've stashed that goes in our Carrack.
So
we're looking for right now.
One of the things before we go on too far, the other thing is with the armors, you will run into planets that are outside your temperature range, and so you might last there for 15 minutes. But obviously, we want to make sure that it's very lucrative for you to be able to, go in there and risk reward gameplay for it.
Yeah, so be equipped. That's why you would have a big ship and buy different armor and store it. Okay, so here's our rover, which we've hidden with a little top, and this is going to be a much more larger example of the cloth interaction system. So, all right, Glenn, let's get the top off and get into the rover. Okay, we can drop it now. And again, that's an example of all the physics stuff coming together, the cloth interacting, the wind's blowing it.
And the wind itself here, one thing I wanted to call out is that the wind is different strengths depending on where you are. So if you're down in the tree line or in the troughs, the wind is a lot slower, and then as you get more exposed, that wind comes out. So it really is a dynamic environment.
And as you see, as we get into here now, the temperatures come up, the water's evaporating from our visor, and we have a clearer view. But of course, the outside of the rover now will have the effect on its canopy. All right, let's let Sam know that she needs to pick us up. Well, after we've engaged the systems, I guess.
Welcome to Product Space Industries. Enjoy your system check.
This isn't going to work because of the go-to setup. The go-tos break the dialogue.
I'm going to need a pickup.
Yeah.
Oh, hello?
Yeah, I'm going to need a pickup down the bottom of the hill.
On my way.
Okay.
Right, got it. We actually, that breaks in our system because we have a little background zoom to the right place, which doesn't actually do the server check right. So it hasn't streamed. And it's actually, you are seeing some of the stuff because this is in server OCS, so we don't have everything all the time now. So when things go in and out, we've still got edge cases, and that's one of the issues that we have to fix before server OCS haven't, but it'll be fine. So let's.
Also, this is precarious, so make sure you get a little noisy for Glenn. Oh.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah, he's coming. coming.
You can see the fog starting to thin out now as we're going a little further down. That's
Yeah. So, like as we're further down, it's not quite as thick. The weather is not quite as intense. I know. He's scaring the shit out of me.
There he goes.
Show off, Glenn. Hey.
Good job, Glenn.
Yeah. I remember when it was almost impossible to get a rover into a ship, but now we can do it. It's great. And here's an example of, so we're talking about storage. So these are actually meant to be for suit storage. Still kind of early days on the stuff, so it's a bit wonky, but we put our suit in there. We need it. So the idea is that you would have suits and stuff that you would store depending on what you would need on different planets. Oops, hang on. We got a.
There's the crime stat.
Got a crime stat, and I think someone's shooting us from behind.
Yeah, I got a pretty hefty crime stat. We're gonna have to get out of here.
We're being tailed. Get to the turret.
Come on.
So this is our first iteration of ship AI in atmosphere.
Yeah. So we are being tailed by MicroTech security because they figured out that we've stolen the data and we're making a getaway. There we go. All right, come on. To our little turret. There we go. Okay, come on, let's get rid of it.
Hey, Sam, why don't you bank?
All right, one more. Okay, come on, let's get him. Okay, last one. Okay, we got one more, right?
Was that all of them?
No, there's one more. Here he is. Get him. Sam's basically flying the ship to try and give Glenn a good shot. All right. Come on, get him. Probably not.
Don't make me take it. You gotta do it.
Go on.
See the storm in the distance.
Yeah, you can actually see a snowstorm in the distance there in the background. As we're leaving, that was where we came from. Do we have to kill them all to advance?
Yeah, punch it.
Okay, come on, Glenn. No pressure.
Joe, take him out.
I don't know what to shoot down either.
Shoot it, shoot it.
Okay, Glenn, come on.
Did it take us this long? I don't remember.
There we go.
Got skills after all.
Come on, Glenn.
Hey!
Hey! So why don't we get out of here, Sam?
Here we had our mission update.
We get it later.
Okay. Let's get out of orbit then. That's a bit. It's kind of. When we run these run-throughs, it did not take. That was the longest it's taken.
Yeah.
It was. It's a bit
Good AI.
nervous on that one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to wait till.
You do a sideways, Glenn. It's kind of cool too. Just go to the sort of side and around. Get like side.
Glenn.
Yeah,
Side.
He's got it. He heard me. See the view. MicroTech's very pretty. All right. When do we get the mission update?
QT.
Oh, we're Q2? Okay. Yeah, you can see that. Those are trees down there. Those dots. That's cool. So is okay. So now we're going to QT, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get it. Let's get going.
She's having trouble with the HUD.
No, it's not set.
It's a what?
It's
She's having trouble with the HUD.
Okay.
Just get up, and then.
yeah.
No,
Once
no.
I get out of atmosphere, it should
Yeah.
help. I hope.
It says flight systems damaged.
Right, but the
Yeah.
the attenuated panel.
Oh, what's happened on that one?
Sam, can you hit B and do it?
Hmm?
Can you hit B and do it?
Yeah, I think I can find it with B, hopefully. It was quite a while ago, wasn't it?
Fucking, we
I
gotta.
don't know what
that whole
happened.
we gotta get the nav.
Yeah.
It's fucking, that whole thing drives me nuts. Okay. All right. Do we have the mission now to go to Piracy?
Should be. Should be coming.
So when's it come? You don't need to rush, by the way, Glenn. Yeah. So should we get the mission now? What's that?
You should see it up top.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it.
Hey, Glenn, can you check your
Mission status? You should have had the update for where to. I'm not sure if you saw it. Yeah, delivered to Ruin Station. There you go. So I told you we had the update of the mission. I guess we just missed it. Anyway, we got the data. We've now told where we got to go. We got to go to Ruin Station in. There we go. So here we go. Go exterior, Glenn. Exterior. There you go. Show it off. There you go. And this is in the volumetric cloud, the space cloud tech that we have. Same stuff that we're using for Squadron 42 for the coil, but as you can see, usable everywhere else. It's completely volumetric lit in, and it's beautiful. And here we're at the jump point to the Pyro system. Now, you don't necessarily need infrastructure for jump points, but the more traveled ones are the ones that used to be traveled, which Pyro used to be, but not particularly anymore, have what we call jump rings around them, and they help stabilize the jump point to make for a smoother jump. If you don't have one, then it's more difficult, and the entrance is harder or difficult. But sometimes you may want to try a sort of side jump point to get into a system, like if you're a smuggler, because the main ones would be more, essentially, they are like a checkpoint. It's like going through a border patrol or something.
It is basically a port. So when we're building the solar system, one of the things that we think about are entrances for, obviously, economy reasons, and you saw that with Tony Z's talk, of way to interject new things into the solar system. So around the Stanton jump points, the three major ones, we will have space stations, so that you can go and travel, and let's say you had a long jump point and you want to stop and basically drop something off there,
or refuel,
or do whatever you need to do. So we will have space stations around those jump points that you can go and interact with. Now, obviously, when you go into a little bit more lawless system, I don't want to say like building a wall.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Pyro, it used to be a regulated system that once they strip-mined it out, no one goes there anymore, and it's fallen sort of into a lawless state. Yes. And so this is not really this isn't a very often traveled jump point, but we're going to take it because that's where we have to go to head to Pyro Station. So as you can see, the jump ring, which is delineating where the point is, off in the distance, and Sam is going to line herself up for us to jump to Pyro system. And this is essentially sort of the infrastructure you occasionally would, you can have around. Some places would have bigger stations. But as I said, the Pyro route isn't a very particularly well-traveled one.
But also with this, I guess with the cloud tech, you see the possibilities of us going in and mining that. And then it affecting your radar, it being booby-trapped, all these kind of gameplay possibilities, I feel, open up with these unique points of interest.
Do you guys think we should open it?
Yes.
I think we should go. Let's do it. That's actually a super cool view. You see that one?
Oh, yeah.
How good that is. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So going through a wormhole is a little bit like riding the rapids. You don't really have much. You have lateral control,
but it's
a little bit
being
of
on a
forward, but you're
current.
being pushed on a current,
Yeah.
and you've got to keep inside the boundaries of the wormhole. And actually, if Sam gets a little close, you'll sort of see interference on his screens. And of course, Stanton's just going away in the background, and Pyrrho's coming in here. Yeah, and you can see there's actually a current that we put in the wormholes, and you sort of see the particles that are giving you the idea of where the centerline current is. And you have to anticipate to keep on the course, because if you don't, and you go off and you go into the boundaries of the wormhole, you could end up just being spat out in just space in the middle of nowhere, or severely damaged. Go around, Glenn. Okay, so we are now in the Pyro system, and we streamed out Stanton as we were traveling, and streamed in Pyro. The other side, by the way, has got an awesome light on the side. Yeah.
Set a route to the ruin station, Sam. There we go.
There we go.
You ready?
All right, Ian. Hit it. Good job, guys. Good job.
Good job. We made it. No crashes. Woohoo! Close one on the interaction. Good job.
Good job, guys. Good job, man.
All right. Sorry. Hang on a sec. I think I get another. There should be a slide that we go to. Not a ship. A slide. Come on. Where's the slide? There you go. Anyway, so in this coming year, we were sort of showing you what we're going to do. So we are going to have the Pyro system next year. Obviously, that brings in jump points. We're going to have dynamic weather. We're going to be, MicroTech, you're going to get the planet itself in 3.8, but we'll be opening up new Babbage in 3.9. We've got moons of MicroTech that come in, I think, in 3.9 too. And we'll be continuing on the development of SOCs and the iCache and the persistence, and it's pretty damn exciting. It's kind of coming together, and at the detail that I didn't think anyone thought would be possible. So, hopefully you guys liked it. So I'd like to give a big shout out to everyone on stage that's helped with the demo here. Glenn and Simon, Joe and Rob are backstage somewhere. Thank you very much. They did a great job. Todd, Mike, Richard, John, who I didn't pull up, he got lucky. He didn't have to go in front of people. Jared over there. Also, we got, I think there's about 200 developers or so here from mostly the Manchester, but some the German office, some the Austin office, some the LA office. So thank you, to all the developers, because I can stand up here and you guys all clap and it's nice for me, but really I'm not doing all this stuff. There's a lot of really talented developers that do everything that you've been seeing here, seeing during the day, and they've worked really hard, and I think things like CitizenCon are one of the coolest things. So they get to come, they get to meet all you guys, they get to interact with people that are appreciating the work they're doing. So it's good, and I want to say thank you to all our developers because they work really, really hard and do a great job. And then we also have, obviously the event staff and the volunteers have done an amazing job with this CitizenCon. Wandering around, it's brilliant. Going back to the very first ones and to what we are now, it's amazing.
Okay, well, it looks like he's winding things up there. A lot of thanking and congratulations and all the rest of it. I've got to say, that did look pretty impressive. I see a lot of comments in the chat at the moment saying likewise. Also, a number of people calling out that it's a scam as always. I think that's seems to be expected now from people. A number of people always seem to say that no matter what. But there is a degree of, I can understand that to a degree with the amount of time the game is taking and the fact that it's not going to be coming out for a long time. But at the end of the day, I think it's also fair to point out that the game is making good progress. It's getting more and more stable with each update, and they are introducing a lot of new content each time. So, I really do like the way it's slowly coming together. I just wish it was coming together a lot faster. But I think, that is where their keynote is ending. I'm going to stay on for a bit longer. I think we'll talk for I'm stumbling over my words. We'll talk through a few things as to what we saw there. So I'd love to know what you all thought about that particular, what have we got here? This is a Carrick trailer that they had early on. So pretty decent looking trailer just for a ship reveal, but we're not going to go there. Let me see if we can play back some of that footage without me actually breaking the stream. Give me 2 seconds. Some of this we should be able to go back over. I want to have a look at a couple of those bits and pieces again, because it did look pretty good. What have we got here? There we go. So we'll have a look at this point. Give rid of that because we don't want that. There we go, and we'll mute Kiss Roberts. Let me just have a look at some of this again. Right, so what do we got going on here? Do you think we will see a capital ship? So the game does. Well, depends on what you mean by capital ships. I think Idris is meant to be a capital ship. Yeah, there will be some large ships in the game, the Bengal carrier. But as to when they'll be in the game, that's another question, isn't it? If I managed to make a demo work in a video game, would be awesome. Neon Spark. For an explorer like you, MicroTech must have been a real treat. Yeah, that's the sort of planets I really do look forward to walking around. To look really neat. I love walking around planets on games like No Man's Sky, but having planets that are a bit more realistic, like what we're seeing here, I think that really is the way to go. Weather effects look great. Bitstorm. The tunnel looks great first time. So with that quantum tunnel, let's just skip forward here after they jumped. There was a fantastic camera angle here. This bit here, I think that looks like, well, aside from the camera position there where the guy's really distorted, that looked really weird, didn't it? Look at that. It's all blown up from the, I guess, from the graphical effect in front of the ship. That's really weird. It's odd. This is a pretty nice camera angle otherwise. But yeah, as Bitstorm's pointing out here, the wormhole tunnel does look great, and it's nice to see that there's going to be some gameplay going on here. But one thing I thought as this was going on, I mean, let's see. Just see here. They enter the tunnel at, you can see down the bottom there. Okay, so let's just say that they enter the tunnel at what? Yep, 4:48 was that? And let's see how long it takes to exit that tunnel. So this is a demo, fully understanding that, but you know, even still, I wouldn't want to be flying through a tunnel for this amount of time. Still going on. So about a minute and a half to travel through that tunnel. I think that's a bit on the long side. I think 30 seconds would be more than enough. And I understand they're streaming the old system out and streaming the new star system in. So that's why that took so long. But yeah, love that. Love the appearance of this tunnel. Really like the idea of having gameplay when traveling between star systems. It's something I think Elite Dangerous really does need, because otherwise it's just a loading screen. And no, this can be considered a loading screen as well. But even still, I think a minute and a half is perhaps a little bit too long there. But yeah, good idea nonetheless. So server-side OCS version 1 will come in patch 3.8. Did they say that? Didn't think that was coming quite yet. Okay, so OCS 3.8. I didn't think they were saying that just yet. Let's just have a look at the chat here as well. So, Soroclane, I think you're still under the impression that you'll be constantly system hopping like you are in Elite. No, not under that impression at all. This game will only have a few star systems, so it's highly unlikely you're going to be constantly system hopping. But nonetheless, I think a minute and a half is still quite a long time to be going through that. I guess it depends on what happens as well. I mean, you go through a minute and a half and damage your ship right at the end. Are you placed back where you started? It could be a lot of time to recover. I love the lightning storm here. Great camera angle, isn't it? So what did you think of the planets? Let's have a look, see if we can have a look at the other footage there down on the MicroTech planet as well. It's a video. Back to that. Was it this one? So not so much inside, it was the outside part. Yeah, the outside I was quite interested in. Obviously, these are handcrafted areas. Chris Roberts was saying that there's going to be a number of handcrafted areas, and the rest of the missions will be procedurally generated. Now, didn't he also say that the status symbol, the status effects for the condition effects for how the weather affects the player, that's coming in 3.8. Did I hear him right there? I'm pretty sure that's what he said. graphical pop-in was not good, no. Wishy-washy. Neither of the players on the stage are using a HOTAS. I don't think that's weird, Wishy. I don't use a HOTAS for Star Citizen. I use a mouse and keyboard. I don't think HOTAS is really essential for a space game. It's nice to have, but not an essential. Although I do usually use one for Elite, but recently gone over to mouse and keyboard with Elite as well. Robert Johnston, thank you very, very much for that. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks for that. Sunraider, so it is an alpha, so who you turn that to? Might have missed a bit of chat there while I was kind of looking about. So another thing that I really liked here was the idea of how you're going from being a guy walking around on the surface, the ground, being a guy in a vehicle, getting that vehicle inside a ship. It lands around here somewhere, doesn't it? Where's a landing? Happens any minute. Oh, there we go. Did we actually see the ship land? Yes, we did, just about. Get your tail end of that. Don't we? Yeah, there we go. Right at the very end. So the one thing that would have made this better is for the Carrack to go and load up inside a larger ship. I guess that will be coming eventually. How long, we don't know, but the SRV looks like it handles much better. I don't know about that. Mike, there's oh right, you're saying this one handles better than the one in Elite. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the SRV seems pretty poor in a lot of ways. Should you start with the Mustang or the Aurora? So Sparrow, just if you want to get into the game, it's free flight at the moment, so you can you don't have to pay anything. But if you do want to buy something, then I'd recommend having a look at the game before you put any money into it. But perhaps go for the cheapest option. No ship will fit the Carrack inside it. Okay, because the Carrack is obviously quite big at Soviet. I get your point. My point was more that it would be nice to be able to load the vehicle inside a ship and then fly that ship up into another ship. So yeah, whilst the Carrack obviously can't fit inside another ship, my point was more that it would be pretty neat to get a vehicle inside a ship and then put that ship inside another ship, if you see what I mean. Okay. So yeah, a few people commenting on how long ago Mark Hamill recorded his lines for Squadron 2. So the idea at the moment from CIG is that Squadron 42, which for those of you that don't know, it's the single player aspect of the game. CIG are working on 2 games, Squadron 42 and Star Citizen. Star Citizen's the online persistent universe one. Squadron 42 is a single player campaign game. Scheduled to go into beta in 2020, but looking at their roadmap, so much is being pushed back that a lot of people are now, you only have to have a look at Reddit, it's Star Citizen subreddit, and you'll see that people are largely expecting Squadron 42 to be pushed back to 2021 at this point. So, yeah, I can get the point you're saying there with Mark Hamill having recorded his lines quite a while ago. But to be perfectly honest, it's a nice space game, but Squadron 42 was never really what I was interested in. I mean, I backed Star Citizen on the first day. I've always been interested in the persistent universe. I guess the only other thing I'd say here is that there's a lot of on-foot stuff and a lot of driving around. And for me, unlike space games being space games, I guess we'll have to see how much of it actually ends up being outside of ships. Yeah? Might just be me, but that's my feeling on this. Right, I think that is where we're going to leave it today. I'd like to thank everyone for coming along today. I'd like to thank for the couple of donations that have come through as well. Always very much appreciated. So thank you to Robert there, and thanks for the one early on in the stream as well. But I'm going to be heading off. I'm going to put a video together on this, so if you've only just joined me and you want to see a bit of an overview, then keep an eye out for that. I'll try and condense everything down into a relatively short video, to the point video, as I normally do. So yeah, be nice watching the stream with you. Catch you guys next time. Take care, okay? See you soon.